I'm going to call the Town Council FY22 budget work session of April 1st, 2021 to order. We're going to move into citizen forum as the first order of business. Carolyn, will you read the announcement, please?
Welcome to this meeting of the Centreville Town Council. This is a public meeting and we welcome your participation. By attending, you acknowledge that this session is recorded and aired live on QAC TV 7. During the meeting, we ask that you turn your cell phones off and hold personal conversations outside the meeting room. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The Town Council respects and appreciates your desire and right to convey your message freely, and in keeping with the dignity of proceedings, we ask that all views be expressed in a respectful and civil manner. Comments longer than 3 minutes should be submitted in writing. If questions are a part of your comments, we'll refer those to the appropriate individual. Thank you.
Is there any citizens here that would like to make a public comment? Please come forward and be heard. Got nobody in the audience coming forward. Did we receive any emails, Carolyn,
No.
for public comment? All right, we're going to close this section of public comment. We're going to move into discussion. First order of the agenda, I think we're going to discuss some of the revenue sides. We're going to bring a discussion in on the tax differential. So at our last budget work session, we were talking about the potential differential that the county has provided in the past, and I wanted to open this up to anybody to see if the council is interested in utilizing some or all of those funds for various capital improvements. We've got a considerable amount of improvements that have been deferred for many years, and I think that I wish the county would fund the entire amount that we're requesting, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I think in their draft that they provided to us, it was just a little bit higher than last year, I think. So I believe that the council should actually receive all of the cash for the differential, and so I'm open to hearing what anybody else has to say. Got anything?
Okay, your statement caught me. You're saying instead of returning the tax differential to the real estate, to the people like has been done in the past. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to make sure I understood your statement.
That's what I said.
You said.
I said instead of it going to the citizens as a reduction in their county tax rate, the town needs to utilize it this year for the pent-up demand of many of the capital projects that have been pushed out for so long.
Okay, so as far as I can see, the given value will be somewhere on the order of $680,000.
Correct.
And I think Karen said to me that there's currently about 300,000 or so in the non-capital budget shortfall.
No, positive. But
It's positive.
But that includes nothing else outside of operating.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we haven't really addressed or went line item by line item. We've reviewed it and became aware of all the capital budget items. But I know one of them at the top of the list is, about $50,000 for the wharf move, which is probably not going to happen. I would defer making a final decision until we go through the capital budget.
And that's fine. I mean, I'd like to hear from...
I understand what you're saying. I mean, there is a pent-up demand. I mean, you look at the list.
Yep.
And there's been a lot that's been kicked down the road, so to speak, over the years. But there is a certain, anticipation from the citizens about, the receipt of that tax differential. And I would seriously let us consider how we can still do that while we look over all the capital budget items. What is a...
And I'm basing my opinion and my recommendation based on, I've gone through these, right? And I've gone through line by line, so.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, does any other council members want to have a comment, Steve or Shelby?
Sure. A few weeks ago, I made a statement here at the session of town council where I said I needed to look at the budget in total and get a sense for revenues and expenditures before I could make a decision on this. And, all of us, I'm not going to speak to all of us actually, I ran on reducing debt and just got some numbers tonight that shows that we are reducing debt. And in fact, I would say meaningfully in the last 2 fiscal years. And I certainly hope that continues. I think the way that continues and we continue to fund this, or start to fund, frankly, what has been a decade, in my view, of deferred maintenance, where you see things on the deferred maintenance line that are from 2016, 2017, 2018. And how do we get ahead of this so that we don't keep passing the buck to future town councils? And also, by the way, increasing the cost of this stuff. If you don't get out in front of it, I think the price just goes up, clearly. And the service to the town dramatically is reduced. And it was helpful for me to see that historical picture of what we're paying in taxes in town here, because it's pretty low. In fact, I think it's unsustainably low. And if I'm not advocating for an increase in the tax rate by any stretch, but I do think the town should retain the tax differential this year. I think it should retain what the county provides. We need it. It would not be my preference that this continue to be the case forever. And I would hope, but I'm looking ahead not just at this year's capital budget, but at what is planned in the 5-year budget for the out years. There are some enormous road projects and sewer and water projects. And if we are going to invest in the future of this town, to me, it starts with this differential and keeping it in the town coffers.
All right. Shelby, anything you?
Yeah, so I think Steve, you just kind of said something that I really feel very passionately as well, is after going through line by line and seeing everything that we really need, having the budget's really made it a lot easier. And I'm definitely leaning towards keeping the tax differential this year because of everything that we do need to do, but it would be my goal for future town councils that we don't have to do this forever, that we can, work on some of these projects and get everything done and hopefully later on be able to give it back to the town.
And I guess it's worth saying on the record that the county process is broken. And I would encourage us to invite the county commissioners out to have the same tour of our facilities that we have all been subject to. And they can see the pressure that's put on our facilities by having county employees, county students coming to town every day and getting no support, no really direct meaningful support from the county to help us with this. And all the cost of all these visitors, daily visitors to the town, is borne by the residents of the town. And so I am pledging right now to say, let's have the commissioners out, let's show them the wastewater facility, let's show them the farm, let's show them everything that we're looking at, and how wet years, which we've had a number of, tax the heck out of our wastewater treatment facility. And we are going to be, if we don't do something out there, I think the future looks like a lot of MDE penalty fees. So we have to invest out there. We have to make it so that we're providing that utility for the townspeople. So I think the county process is broken. I'm willing to work with our commissioners to fix that and hopefully get them bought in and invested into what we're trying to do here, the county seat. And it was really helpful for me to see and participate in the Council of Governments meeting that virtually, in fact, I think all other municipalities take every bit of this differential and they don't even think about it. It's not even a deliberation they participate in. They just assume this is part of their budget. Every year, the county gives it to them and they go on about their business. It's not this sort of super tense decision that they have to make. And I think it's time for us as new council members to take frankly, a financially sound step in the right direction this year.
I really like the idea of having the commissioners go out on a tour. I mean, when they have an annual SHA tour where they take out the state facility
bring
people
that
and say, here's what our priorities are, right, for
we
their
want.
funding, I think it'd be good for us to take them out as well. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea too.
Yeah,
All right, is there any further discussion on the tax differential as it relates to this particular budget work session?
yeah. We're anticipating $4.1 million come around July 1st, correct?
We're not going to get all of that this year, though.
We get half,
Yeah.
yeah, so 2 million.
I mean, it's over 24 months, correct. I don't know if you've had time, or Steve or Kip have had time to look at if there is anything in the current budget, proposed budget, that would be accommodated and be able to use that $4.1 million for, which would, I think, we should take advantage of that windfall. It says water, sewer, and infrastructure. And that's come out of Maryland Municipal League interpretation. Senator Cardin has sent out a report, but we still don't, though, know all the dotted i's and crossed t's. And I would think our people that are at the front line, the budget people, the operations people, the town manager, I would hope has reviewed our budget to see where we can accommodate it. And I know at the end of last week, you mentioned to set aside $500,000 for broadband infrastructure, which is definitely a part of the American Rescue Plan. We're getting it. We should use that judiciously to meet some of our needs.
And I believe that we will. And we're going to go through all that stuff.
So whether we retain the tax differential or we don't, or are we only being given the two options, whether to take it as a lump sum or the other option, which is to return it, the 11 cents to the tax rate?
I was not at the COG meeting, so I believe what they said was, we need to come back to them and tell them what we want.
And that was what I was going to then say. We maybe need to, for maybe one of the first times, split it, retain some and give back some. So that is why we're doing this budget review, I would hope.
One of the problems with splitting it, I believe, is because we haven't had it for so long, there's so many things that are backwards. There's so many things that are needed.
I understand.
The very first year that we did this, they used to give us $100 and some thousand as just, here's some money, right?
Right.
Then the first year that we went to a differential, they said, you're getting none of that. So we've had that hole in our budget every single year. Had we kept up with it all the way through, I don't think we'd be in the hole that we're in right now. Okay. All right, so why don't we move on? That's going to be a discussion point on our regular meeting. And Jeff, we did defer to you as you're not really able to participate in that particular part, but I think you could do everything else.
I was just going to say too, Tim, that if you invited the commissioners and they weren't able to attend, maybe we could send pictures. We could come up with a packet of pictures to send in with our decision, like, here's why we've chosen this route. Like, you can see the needs.
Yeah.
So just an idea.
Anything we can do to get them out there. All right, next we're going to talk about public utility tax rates. This is something that we had brought up briefly last time. And I sent everybody out a one-pager, and I'm happy to go over this. This is something that's kind of we've been able to utilize as a way to bring in some more revenue. And I'm just going to quickly kind of go over it. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to review this or not, but basically the public utility tax is a tax that's imposed on all public utility property used to operate their business. So the real property land and buildings, but also things like telephones, electric poles, towers, lines, cable. All of that stuff is considered to be utility property. So up until fiscal year 2016, the public rate was $1.06. So in 2016, we wanted to see if there was a way to increase revenue without impacting directly the property owners that are in town. So we looked into the public utility tax. We went to the State Department of Taxation. We talked to finance officers of multiple municipalities as well as MML. And again, it's important to note that this tax is spread over the ratepayers of the entire utility. So it's not just Centreville. So if you look at Verizon and Delmarva, who are the two largest utilities that are here in town, Verizon Communications has 151 million customers. That's wireless alone, right? So any taxes that we or other municipalities are imposing on them are split up between over 151 million customers. Delmarva, they have 10 million customers total. These organizations over the past year, Verizon made $15 billion in profits. That's not in sales. That's $15 billion in profits, right? Delmarva was $3.77 billion in annual profits. So in 2016, out of 157 municipalities, 22% were charging more than 2.5 times the property tax. Times the property tax rate. That's the upper limit that the counties are allowed to charge. There's no cap on the municipalities. So in FY 2017, we actually set it at $2.11, and we kept it there for a couple of years. And then last year, in FY 2020, actually 2 years ago, we moved it from $2.11 to $3.11. And the result was, originally in 2016, it was $61,000. In 2020, it was $195,000. And then last year, we moved it from $3.11 up to $7, which brought it up to $471,000. So the result, what we did was we decided to split the increase from $3.11 to $7. 75% of that went to the permanent fund, and then 25% went to the general fund. Overall, the total average was, based on the $3.11 and the additional amount, it was about 42% of the tax going to the permanent fund and 58% going into the general fund. So for FY22, the value is $6,716,280. So every dollar of PUT tax brings in $67,000 worth of revenue. So if we do a PUT of $7 again this year, that'll be about $470,000 in revenue. My recommendation is actually that we raise it this year to 13, and we split it exactly 50-50 between the permanent fund and the general fund. So the total revenue will be $873,000. 50% would go to the permanent fund and 50% would go to the general fund. Each of those would result in $436,553. And so that would increase our general fund this year by $163,000. Remember, the cost is spread out over all utility payers. The permanent fund has been growing, but it still needs, I think, another boost. And because the permanent fund was depleted, we're losing out on a considerable amount of interest every year. And so in order to get that back up, that would be in order to get that interest back up, that'd be a way to fund it. So I'm open up to the discussion if anybody has any questions or comments on my proposal to go from 7 to 13.
Has there been any, I'll just say the operative word, pushback by the utilities?
No, not this year. The two big ones have already paid, so.
The 13, oh,
$7.
$7.
Yeah, yeah. So Delmarva and Verizon have both paid their portion.
$7. And we're proposing to go to 13.
Yeah. And remember, the year before that, it was $3.11, and then we raised it up to 7.
And
there's never been any inquiry at all.
Did they have anything to say about when you went from 3 to 7?
No.
They've never, ever said
But they're
it.
making
Yeah,
$15 billion.
Yeah, I mean, there was no, they called me one day to say, the mail is slow, we're running behind, but we'll have the payment within 2 days of the due, I mean, they were just, yeah.
Verizon Wireless is not the company that's on the telephone poles, though. It's Verizon, the utility, so it's a completely different company. This seems a little bit, to me, the number is a little arbitrary, because it seems like we're trying to turn the screw until somebody says, ouch. And look, I'm not going to defend Verizon and Delmarva and those companies, but It just feels a little arbitrary to me. I do like the funding to the permanent fund, and, I suspect that they have a way of determining what municipalities are charging what taxes. So I wonder if it does get spread across the entirety of their customer base, or if they have a way of tracking, what the regulatory fee structure looks like in this place and charging our folks there, so it does get passed along to our taxpayers. I would want to do a little more digging on that, or if they're just prorating their entire regulatory, regulation fee across their entire company. That would seem unlikely to me, I guess, given how complicated these businesses are. But this is a tax that we're increasing every year, essentially. 2021, now potentially doubling it again. What do the other municipalities around here charge? Do we know?
There are, again, in 2016, there were 35 that were charging more than 2.5 times.
Yeah, but 2.5 times, that's like $1.
Well, it depends on what your tax rate is. So there's one that was charging over 100 times what their municipal property tax rate was.
What would $13 be on top of 0.40?
It's pretty high.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Any comments, Shelby?
I was gonna ask, how did you come up with 13?
Yeah.
That's what I had asked for last year.
Yeah, I'd be just curious to see what other towns are charging, and then I do think it's interesting to look into how they actually split it out and if it's over everyone, or if they have a way of just charging our residents more.
All right, so does somebody want to do that research and report back at our next budget session?
Sure, I'll do that. Do folks agree that we are turning the screw until they say ouch? I feel like some of this is based on the fact that we more than doubled it in 21. They didn't say anything, so let's double it again. Seems a little dicey to me, but that's just.
I agree, but
I agree too.
But the $15.5 billion they made last year.
And it went many years without increase. Many years.
So I would go as far, I say, keep turning it until they say ouch. So, that's what, they're in business to make money. That's what they do.
And Steve raised the point, how are the citizens of Centreville, do we see an increase in our electric bill or our telephone bill from Verizon? I don't have Verizon. I don't know, they have their tax fees, right, in a separate line item, like on Delmarva. And I don't know, I would love to see you, I appreciate you volunteering in that. Part of the thing is, the town of Centreville zip code is 21617, but that also encompasses many other areas outside of the town limits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So-
exactly.
So,
The-
I was just wondering, it would be interesting, but I say, let's.
So why don't we do this? Why don't you do some research, come back and tell us what you think, and then at our next budget hearing, at our next budget session, we can, kind of make a decision on what that rate is going to be, whether it's going to stay the same, whether it's going to go up, whether it's going to go down.
Do we know if, because we don't have Verizon either, but we do have Atlantic Broadband, and they're on the same, are they paying a tithe to whoever owns the telephone poles?
So they are paying an amount to the town of Centreville because they're not a utility. There's a
Franchise
different,
fee.
they're paying a franchise.
Franchise.
But right, but I'm wondering, are they paying, as part of their lease agreement to be on top of Delmarva's poles?
Yes.
Are they paying, prorated to help pay for Delmarva and Verizon's public utility tax?
So that amount is regulated by, there's some federal law that says, here's how much you're allowed to charge. Here's how much Verizon,
Yeah,
whoever
you
owns
can
these
only charge
poles,
so much.
is allowed to charge. That's a federally regulated amount.
I mean, you would think if the cost of those poles to Delmarva is going to be higher, they're going to pass that cost on to Atlantic Broadband too. I mean, they're not going to eat it for ABB. I'm just curious if a potential increase in the public utility tax could lead to a higher Atlantic Broadband bill.
It goes up every year if you think about it.
A good question.
I believe you're going to find that it's spread out over all of them. Yep. All right, I don't think we have any further discussion on that. Why don't we move into the water and sewer utility rates? I'm not sure what we're really talking about here, but
This is just to, in the operating budget, last year, they approved 2 years' worth of increases, 25% each fiscal year. It is already accounted for in the budget. And I just didn't know if anybody had any questions or comments on it, or if we were good where we're at.
I think we're good.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so.
Salary study?
Yeah. So I think the big one is this one is, if anybody had any questions, is it something you wanted to approve? Is it something you wanted to retro it to 1 January, like with the police departments that were approved last time for the mid-year update?
So the pass out that you just had today, it's basically page 1 and page 2 of operating, right? One is for the general fund. Is that what we're talking about?
No, this is from Crystal's packet that she gave you last.
Yep.
So you'll see them on the summary sheets that I gave you, so the new ones that look like these.
The ones that were on your,
Yeah.
Okay.
If you wanted to look at the figures, I figured this would be a good time to dive in to the operating extras. So salary study was at the top of the list.
All right, so I would like to go forward, this is my opinion, go forward with the recommendations that staff provided and do it retroactive to January 1 of 2021.
what is the cost of that? Do we know? Is that in
The
the,
general fund is $12,588, is that right?
No,
No,
that's higher than that.
it's 30, are you looking at the addition?
36,335?
It's 3501. Look at the additional summary sheet, sorry. These ones.
is that what you just gave out to us
2014?
tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones from tonight.
Okay.
Yes, 35014.
And Karen did hand out one page that was part of what Crystal had provided, and there was one number change in the Main Street manager's proposed salary. Other than that sheet,
Okay, that's what I have, yeah.
everything else is related to what I think Steve was just showing you.
35014,
Yep,
only for, and that, is that,
that's just for the salary study.
but that does not include retroactivity
Well, the 35,000, Karen, is July 1 number.
Yes.
Yeah,
July
so
1.
if you look at,
What Tim was asking about the 12
Okay.
is what is needed to go back retroactive.
we're at 47 for retroactive.
Yeah. I'm trying to find my sheet. Ooh. I guess I didn't reprint one for myself.
It's right here.
Yes. The 40,
40 page, what is that, 3, first chart?
And the 35,000 number is just showing you, if you make the retroactivity, once you start July 1st, that's what the total effect is.
For 22.
Bringing everybody to July 1 salary,
But
starting July 1.
if we retroactive to January 1st, the total is 17,250.
that's with general and enterprise,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Between both budgets, yes.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
added to the 35, yes.
So the 35 is for both budgets?
35's for general fund, 1 July, and if you retro to January 1, you would add the 12,588 to that.
Okay, and then what about enterprise?
Enterprise is 6,104 if you retroactive. It's adding 4662, which is approximately $10,700 on that side.
And this would be in addition to any step or COLA, right?
Yeah, these are on their own.
Yep.
Yeah,
So the retroactivity, the intent is it's coming out of this current year's budget,
yes, that
as
12,000
far as
wouldn't
that
hit.
dollar amount.
Yeah, it wouldn't hit
What
FY
you're looking at,
'22.
the effect starting next year is the 35,000 and the 6,000.
I am for this. I support making it retroactive to January and adopting the salary survey.
Is that a motion?
Well, I don't think we need a motion at this point. I think we're just looking for consensus, and then what
Okay.
will happen is, if there's consensus, she'll add it into next week's version. Right? Does that make
Okay,
sense?
that's what I'm-
Yeah.
I mean, you're always big on motions.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it's, you know,
So, no, that's
it's a
okay.
work session, so.
Yeah,
it's-
okay, all right,
Yeah,
yeah,
I support this as well.
yeah.
I also do.
all right.
So what I'll do is when we come back next week, whatever changes are made tonight, I'll give you new packets, and then you'll see where each budget's at that point.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, next we're going to talk about steps.
Yep. All right, so you'll see on the same sheet, the additional summary, you have the step increase by itself and then the step and some COLAs. And I will tell you, I have talked to the county, that obviously they haven't made their decisions, but I did ask if they were proposing any, and they were looking at a pay by performance, so like a step, and then a possible COLA as well.
Yep, so I think last time you had talked about Social Security is going up 1 point something percent, right?
1.3 for Social Security and the
1.3.
VA. Yeah.
So I'm in favor of a step increase and a COLA, and I could go to the 1 or to the 1.5, or if we wanted to do the exact same as what the Social Security recommendation is.
I would support step plus 1%.
That sounds reasonable.
I also do.
What is the healthcare cost going up?
It's 3.9%, but it is already inclusive of the operating budget, so it's outside of this.
Outside of it?
Yep, it's in we had put it in the actual operating budget that's behind, and it's, so what's in the operating is inclusive of health insurance,
So
life
that
insurance.
is not coming out of employee salary, is that what I'm hearing? What?
No, it's not coming out of on here, but it is included in the budget.
Yes, I understand.
Well, remember, we do 85-15, so if it's going up 3.9%, their 15%
Goes up.
it goes up as well.
Yeah,
So,
okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's cool.
Do you guys have any other
I
comments?
support it too.
All right,
Yeah.
Step plus
Yeah.
1, we said?
step plus
Step
one?
plus one.
Well, I think Steve said, what, step plus 1%?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted, because Tim was mentioned, threw out a figure of 1.3 or
Yeah,
something.
I think 1 is good.
Okay,
Compensation payout. Are we all good with that? Like,
Compensation payout?
no, I was going to say, no, I'm saying step and COLA.
Step and
Like, I don't want
1%.
to just, I'm barreling
Yeah,
through
no, you're
this. I just
good.
want to make
So-
sure I'm not going too fast.
Yeah, and next week I'll have that inclusive so you can see where it's at.
Is there a way to do this compensation period in 2 chunks in 2 fiscal years? So 30 this year and 30 now?
And Steve and I have had this discussion because we're actually trying to we're working with department heads to project revenue and where they're going to come in at expenses. We're hoping that we can cover the initial, if you guys approve the policy, we're hoping the initial payout can be paid this fiscal year. So that
Fiscal year that we're in.
that
Out of this money, out of the money that
we're
we've got
hoping, so if we can do that, then the cost for '22 would only be the 15,000 to set the average based on what the cap would be in the policy.
so
And we
just to clarify,
we feel we'd be able to, give you a pretty clear picture of whether we'd be able to pay it all off before you strike the budget.
so just to clarify, you believe that the back compensation pay can be taken care of in 2021?
Yes,
And then we would institute a new comp time policy, which would be bounded
yes,
at the max of 100 hours.
Correct.
Which is in Crystal's study,
yes,
which reflects all the input and data.
Yep. But we looked at the last 3 years and did an average.
Right.
Right, we were projecting, you know, if you adopted the policy and we were able to clear it all out at the end of this fiscal year, that next year's budget, you would only be looking around 15,000.
Right. We just want to make sure we're all on the same page on it.
Yeah.
I think this speaks to great management, so good for y'all.
Thanks.
Well,
Are we good with that?
Yeah.
All right.
the other part is we need to get one or two more staff people. So George doesn't have to work 60 hours a week, okay? And I think we're taking care of that with the change in the salary structure. That, what?
We're hoping.
Absolutely.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's why we're taking the differential.
Jeff, you're good with it? You're good with
Yes.
this? All right,
Yes, I'm
all right,
good.
so I think we're done there. Is there any further discussion on comp payout?
The other thing that I just thought of this afternoon, because I just signed two sort of offers of employment to two new utility workers. The last one that Crystal made the offer to said they wanted the job. We made the offer. They sent an email back saying, sorry, the pay's too low. So the two offers that I made today were at the lower rate. So with the fact that you're all okay with the retroactivity, I want to make sure you're all okay that we go ahead and offer the higher rate that we are now agreeing to these two people.
So if you want a motion for that, we could either do it now or we could do it during your report, and that way, you know, it'll be official.
I mean, the fact that you've at least all in a general consensus said you were okay with the retroactivity, that would make the salary available to these two new employees right now. If you're okay with that, or if you want to make a motion on that specific thing, that's fine.
What would you prefer? You want a motion now, or
I
do you
mean,
want to?
I don't have to have motions, you know, as long as you're all comfortable with it,
All right, we're good. All right, yeah, we're fine.
then we'll go ahead and offer the two new people the higher rates that we're supposed to go to.
All right, next is end of service payout.
Yeah, and so broken into two pieces, we do have a prior fiscal year payout that we need to do based on an agreement that was made previously that had, we'd like to possibly even be able to account for this in the savings in FY =21.
Right, and so in previous budgets, we never acknowledged that this debt was there, but it was there, and it was acknowledged in is it in our audit that
It's in the audit under long-term liabilities.
Yeah, I mean, I believe your recommendation was 2% of salary, so we need to pay out what we need to pay out no matter what, and I think it's important that if we can do it in some kind of a revolving possible, where we could build it up to a certain amount, and then,
So what
I'm
I've
good
done
for it.
is I've broken it out 1.5, and 2% to put into the budget. My recommendation is to, at least until we can get to a point where we are building up some sort of fund so that when people leave, it's not a big burden on the either side of the account. So I would recommend doing 2% this year, and we can look at it every year until we build up enough where we're like, okay, we haven't anybody leave, we can keep it at nothing for 2 years.
What are we averaging per year in end of service payout roughly?
Some years, nothing at all.
Yeah.
You know, because when we have such high turnover in certain departments, there isn't high balances of leave. But then when you have people that have been here for years
Sure.
that have leave, you know,
Can you pay end of service payouts out of the permanent fund, or is that not allowed?
no.
Okay. So I'm with President McCluskey. I would say we ought to be able to roll this forward in an account.
Yeah.
So just track that in future years' budgets.
I agree.
Shelley? Bob?
Yep.
All
Is
right,
there a percentage that you guys are comfortable, you're right with 2%?
I say 2.
I'd say 2%.
Okay, and then again, this will be in the next week, so you'll be able to see. And so on the new summary sheets you got, there's one that's called a prior fiscal year payout. You see that 34,000? That's for the agreement with a prior employee. Steve and I talked, we're hoping, and we'll see, you know, as we get further along, to be able to, in conjunction with the comp payout, to be able to get this cleared before 21's over.
Okay.
Okay,
But if there's any amount that we don't think we can swing at the end of this fiscal year,
Yeah.
it would carry over, and we need to get that commitment taken care of.
Yep.
So the total number that we owe that employee is north of 34,046.
correct, and that would be effective, that's what we would owe them 1 July.
Okay.
So,
It's no more than that. It's no more than 34.
come 1 July, no.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Any other
just
questions
wanted-
on that?
Once we pay 34 on July 1, we're done with that employee?
We are done.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then it would
And it
just
was
be,
just a long-term arrangement, but, they just didn't ask for it all to be lump sum, so.
So we're doing a lot of cleaning up here,
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
which is good.
Any other questions on end of service? All right. Let's go into department budgets, which is next on our list.
So really quick, before we break into that, I just wanted to bring up, I was talking to Shore United today, and she reminded me, our current ICS rate is expiring on Tuesday. So we currently have 1.55%. With the Fed rates dropping as dramatic as they have, our new rate being offered is 0.45%. Still above the basic checking account of 0.03, and our money is federally insured. So I need 2 decisions if possible. Are you okay with the reduction to 0.45 in ICS, or would you rather go back to basic checking accounts for 0.003?
What is the ICS rate, is the permanent fund making that rate?
Yes,
Okay, so
Yep.
it'll go down to 0.45.
yep.
That's the highest rate that we could possibly get right
Right
now.
at this, yeah, the Fed rates are like 0.17. So it's really a good offer, I think.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that.
All right.
Yeah.
And the second decision, Abby informed me that we could make a 6-month or 1-year commitment with this. So basically, in 6 months, if the rates skyrocket, we could get locked in at a higher rate. If they were to plummet, then we could go below the 0.5. So we can either lock in for 6 months or 1 year.
I don't think rates are going anywhere. I would lock in for a year.
Okay?
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I don't foresee the near future any kind of.
Okay.
All right, so, thank you. All right, so operating budgets is nothing besides the general fund summary page that I gave you a new one of, which now accounts for the transfer of the $197,000 in PUT to the permanent fund. The budget you have from last week is still valid past the 2 summary pages.
You have, just quickly, if you don't, it's fine. The permanent fund balance with this $197,000?
What it will be?
Yeah.
With including the CD, 1.3 million.
Great.
And so our CD also expires May 31st, which we are earning 2.65%. The new CD is going to earn 0.4, so my suggestion would be, instead of having the CD, that money will then go into ICS, earning the highest rate we can get.
Yeah.
It's the same rate.
Yeah. All right, so where do you want to start?
All right, so I would say last week we talked to each department head, and except Chief, who's here, if you wanted any further explanations for the police department. Was there any questions or comments or changes from you guys after discussions on the operating last week? Do you want to approve the operating as is to see how it flows next week?
Will next week's sheet include tax differential?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can add that
And
in.
at what point are you anticipating adding the 50% of the ARP funds coming in?
Whenever, I can add that in for next week if you want as well.
Sure.
But how is that going to be included in the budget as a separate?
I would put its own line. Yeah. I mean, I could.
We could bill some things to that revenue line.
Yeah. Now I could, do you want one line in general fund, one line in enterprise? Do you want it? How do you
And I
want
think we
it?
need to figure out what's going where.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think there's still some fuzziness about what we can use for the general fund,
Sure.
but it's very clear about water and sewer infrastructure.
Oh,
right?
absolutely
So,
is, yes.
I'm going to talk a little bit later about.
Yeah, I think once you get into the capital, which is some of your bigger numbers, then that might help sort out
Where we want to
where
post those
you
funds.
want to divide up the money related to the grant.
So the only question I have under the operating so far under the general fund is contract services, which was
Which
the parking
department?
kiosks for B92, B10 for the police department. Maybe Joe, if you could come up here. I'm looking at page 14, which is B10 7440 contract services. and the increase this year is $10,000. I'm not sure if the full amount is for the parking kiosk, and I had thought that you had said you don't recommend we do that.
Right.
And maybe it's something, was that the full amount, 10,000, or was that less, do you know?
It included 2 parking kiosks, but it also had the power DMS system as well.
All right, so the power DMS was 4,000. Was the kiosks, that would have been about 6 or, 5,900 or something?
Yes.
Okay. So I would say, so why don't we just make that line just the power DMS? Does that make sense?
From B10 7440.
Yeah, contract services, right?
So where in the 22 budget, reduce the 23,000 by 6,000?
Yeah, whatever the difference is between the 10,000 increase and the 409 something. 407250. Does that make sense?
Do we, for the parking kiosks, you don't think we need those? That's to pay?
I'm not sure what the council's pleasure is with that moving forward, because I know there was a discussion about having a parking study, so we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, I think, a little bit there.
That, from what I remember, the kiosks was kind of a thing to see what kind of parking we've got, right? I believe we should let's spend the money on the parking study and get that done. And that should dictate what kind of parking charges, meters, all of that we should do.
The parking study in the general budget?
Yeah, it's in the capital
the
requests, I
capital.
believe.
Yeah.
Capital budget?
Capital.
Yeah.
General fund capital requests.
Yeah, I think it was like 6,000 or something.
Yeah, I think it was 6,000.
We're going page by page or what?
Well, if you have any like that's the only, I went through all of the
that's
operating
fine.
budget. I don't have
Okay.
any other
Well,
issues to pull out.
On
I think what
A70,
Karen's trying to do is just,
No, that's
each
fine.
one of you has some certain departments or certain questions. We'll just try to address those first as opposed to just trying to go.
yeah, that's fine.
line
I
by
didn't know
line.
if Tim was going front to back.
So is your recommendation to remove the 6,000 would put us at 17,072.50 to include the DMS?
Yeah.
So I'm for long-term, the kiosks, because I think it allows us to take the speed, the parking meters out, right?
Correct.
And I guess in the context of this budget year and COVID and the travel restrictions that even if they lift, I think people's comfort with coming out, I'm less excited about the parking study than I would be in a normal year with normal traffic in town, but I'm not.
Typically, we've allocated $3,000 for our meters operating supplies too. So, I mean, if we, through attrition, we move to a automated parking program rather than the antiquated meters that we constantly have to provide maintenance on, I think we could probably dissolve that $3,000 that's set aside each budget cycle and fold that into our contract services or a separate line item for the automated parking systems that we're going to use.
Do you think the automated system would increase capture rate?
That would probably be a good question for the vendor. I would imagine they'd have some sort of data.
And these kiosks, they're not for getting rid of all the meters in town. This was specifically for the lot over by the library, right on Happy Lady Lane, and the old Callahan lot. It wasn't to possibly take out all the meters around here, which I think is a good long-term plan. But I don't think that is all baked out yet, right? I mean, I think that a parking study should hopefully look at everything, not just we're in a bad year and people aren't parking here, right? I don't think that they're necessarily going to say at noon on Tuesday there was only 14% of the spots were used. I'm sure they're going to do some of that.
I mean, I think part of the study would be to determine if you still want to use some type of meter system, how many spaces do you want to consider? I mean, right now, we've had 94 parking meter spaces, you know, do you need to have more?
You're talking
Do you have
about,
less? Or do you want to go to the point where you don't want to have any metering at all, and everything's free, that some jurisdictions have done, so.
and part of, you're saying the library parking lot over across the street?
Yeah, I
from-
mean, it's not the library, but it's right next to the library.
Right next to the library. I understand that the majority of spots there are taken by employees of businesses. Those spots that are currently free, I don't know, we have a parking garage here on the second floor that I think part of the parking study is, I think we should encourage employees of businesses to use that versus their convenient, we want to make it convenient for customers.
I agree, and I think that's part of what a parking study would tell us.
Okay, I'm just making sure we're, you know, that's important, I think.
My point in bringing up you done?
Yeah,
My point in bringing up COVID is just that I don't think we need this right now. That's all. I'm not suggesting that they're going to come back and say, right now, here's the situation. My point is the parking study seems less urgent to me, given, you know, people aren't coming to the courthouse as much, people aren't coming to dinner as much, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not super enthusiastic about the parking study this year. It's not to say future years. I mean, having lived here 11 years, I'll just say anecdotally, I've never had a problem finding a place to park. I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but, you know, get haircuts at the barbershop and never have a problem. Seafood from the steam pot, never have a problem. Picking up pizzas. So I don't, this, for me, it just doesn't seem very urgent.
And, you know, and so we can discuss that part at the capital budget, but I'm okay too. I mean, if we want to push it out another year, it's $6,000 is not that big of a deal. My bigger point was, are the kiosks really necessary this year? And I had thought that you had said that they weren't.
And I agree. And the only other thing that I would add is that we've had some unexpected administrative procedures during my tenure here as chief that have come out of the contract services line. And please keep in mind also that all of our, a good percentage of our processing for new hires at the police department also comes out of contract services via psychological evaluations for police officers and polygraph examinations and things like that. So because we had been shorthanded through some attrition there, we did go a little bit into the negative. So I want to avoid that type of oversight again, and padding that I think is going to help us out a little bit as we move forward.
Okay. Whatever the consensus is of the council.
Let's take the kiosks out. It sounds like you don't think they're necessary either.
I do not.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's take them out.
Okay.
Okay,
Are we gonna-
A7,
A70, you had a question about
Yeah.
A70?
Are we
The con-
reducing that to 17,000
I'm sorry.
for the B10 74, or we're reducing to 17,000? 16.
okay, A70 contract services. I made a note to myself that the increase, and I believe Steve Walls mentioned, that we're looking to have contract services for a new planning person,
It's for code enforcement.
code enforcement, correct?
Yeah, contractual code enforcement.
And that's, I just want to confirm that you, and I think it's important that we do have that, because there's too much is slipping, okay, on code enforcement. I mean, you walk around town and it's kind of like on Broadway with the toilets and
Yeah,
That's code
I can
enforcement.
attest to, you know, it certainly is a fair amount of my time, you know,
Yes.
because I'm
I
classified
was
as
just
a
gonna
zoning
say,
administrator, involved with code enforcement.
yeah.
All right, are there any other questions about operating budget?
I highlighted a few things, just let me flip through it. Okay, Independence Day, yeah. Economic development, there's a bump up in that of $15,000.
Yep.
There was a sheet behind the A92 budget that breaks down pages where her expectation to spend
Oh,
it.
okay, right.
Page
Okay.
12, sorry.
I got it.
I mean, any questions, go ahead. I just want to let you know that was there.
Okay, that is the request of Ms. Tillman, right?
Carolyn could
And Carolyn.
probably.
Yeah,
Okay.
through page, yes.
Yes. Okay, I'm just devils in the details sometimes. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think just
That gives
as
us
a
room.
general note related to economic development, in the past, you know, the $25,000 amount that the council's had in there for probably three years or more.
Yeah.
It's typically been just related to the salary of the contractual employee, and there really was not anything extra for things to do to promote, you know, economic development. So I think that's part of Paige's request to have some extra money for other things.
Okay. Anybody have anything else on the general fund operating budget? All right. So do you want to go into, Karen, what do you want to go into next? Do you want to go into capital?
Yes,
On general capital?
yes.
Okay.
So, nothing changed, the summer, or the two front pages of the enterprise operating and general fund operating with the steps, those were the only pages of that packet that changed, which we won't be going over at this time because we're talking about capital, but I just wanted to. So it will be in your packet, it should be after the 5-year capital plan. So, and it's the first page of the capital, it should look like this.
Is that page 96, page 21, page something?
It's page two of the capital, sorry, because I put stickies on some of you guys', I don't know if they're still there, but it would be the third
Got
sticky
it.
if you're
All
still.
right, page 2, additional capital budget request 32521.
This, Karen.
Yes. Yeah. All right, so did you want to kind of, I'm sorry.
Yeah, here, Bob.
I'm just, I see the one that's highlighted.
It's past all that stuff, we
Oh.
passed all the COLAs,
Next
Okay.
tab,
the next tab.
after the highlighted stuff.
That one?
Yep,
Okay.
keep going,
All right, here we go.
next couple of pages.
Yeah, all right. Got it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
All right, so I think the first one is town hall improvements and then wharf modification. You know, I personally would like to see, we know what it's gonna cost to possibly renovate the wharf. We don't know what it's gonna cost to renovate the police station if the finance moves down there. But I would like to see what the possibility is of a new building, right? And so, you know, I'd like to hold off on the 141 and use the 60.
Is the 60 inclusive of town hall improvements? And if we think we might have a new building, are those improvements essential?
No, the reason it has the note there to the right on justification, we've had requests for trying to do some improvements for town hall since 2016. But in this particular request, we're just saying the 60,000 to allow for, you know, a consultant to actually design in about 3 or 4 month time frame, you know, a new municipal building that would see about housing all of the town facilities, I mean, all the town staff.
So the design would be 60 grand.
Yes. It's in that ballpark, you know, that was an estimate that was provided just for budget purposes.
We're eliminating 141.7.
Correct.
810.
So and I would say, you know, in the stuff that I've looked at, right, this is just my opinion, I'm good with all of the rest of it, except if we're going to pull the parking study out, let's pull the parking study out and push that out to a future year.
Good with all the rest of the police department?
I'm good with all the rest of the general fund capital budget requests.
The one major item in C11 streets is Whedon Street, which is covered under a couple of, would that be possible, I should say, part of the American Rescue Plan?
Definitely the water and sewer portion of that, which was in the enterprise budget. I personally believe that the $4 million we're going to be able to generally use it for any kind of infrastructure.
No,
right?
so do I.
But it absolutely would be available to be used for the water and sewer portion of that. And that's
then-
not in this.
But it's not in the 200.
That's not in the 200. This is just curb and gutter, sidewalk, and
Yeah,
pavement.
but then there is another line item. For
In the
Whedon
enterprise
Street.
for water and
Yes.
sewer. Yep.
Okay. But if you tear the street up to put water and sewer, you have to make it whole again?
Well,
Pave it.
technically, you don't have to. You don't have to do curb and gutter.
Technically.
All you need to do is that portion that you pull it up, so,
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Technically.
yep.
You could patch.
Good patch, yeah,
Be
right.
beneficial to do the whole street, but you could patch.
You could. Hello.
I mean, again, I think that when the guidance comes out from the final, they're going to want to see you're fixing roads, you're doing infrastructure, and I think
Right.
it's going to be
I
fine.
mean, those are the 3 words in there.
Yep.
I have a question about the drug detection Canine team. Chief? I see we're at $20,000. Do you think that becomes what's the annual cost to the town to maintain that, you think?
So glad you asked that. In fact, in your packets that I provided for you, you'll see on the very back page of that, which is page 4, just briefly go over my request for an additional canine unit. This would be for a drug detection and a tracking dog. We currently have one canine team that consists of one handler and a cross-trained drug detection, tracking, and apprehension dog. Our current canine officer is not only a dog handler, but he's also a Maryland certified dog trainer who has countless hours of canine training. Having our own certified canine handler with this type of certification is invaluable to a canine program, as many of our training sessions can be held in-house, meaning that we don't have to pay somebody to train our dogs or to do the state mandated 2 days a week training of canines. So that's cost saving as it is there. Well before the COVID-19 pandemic, Queen Anne's County battled another type of pandemic in the opioid epidemic. Over the last 3 years, the town of Centreville has been nestled in the midst of 211 non-fatal overdose incidents and 45 fatal overdose incidents. We just had one in the town of Centreville 2 weeks ago, our first of the year. While the COVID-19 pandemic has occupied much attention, the opioid crisis continues to decimate lives. This year alone, Queen Anne's County has seen, as of last week, 14 non-fatal overdose and 6 fatal overdose incidents. The addition of another specialty trained canine team to the police department is a critical part of drug detection and a drug trafficking deterrent for the town of Centreville. If approved, this new canine will be trained in drug detection and tracking only and be available, social, and approachable to citizens at community events and other social venues. It's a $20,000 startup fee, which covers the cost of the dog, the initial training for the canine handler, all the equipment for the vehicle, upfitting of the vehicle for canine, food and water bowls, leashes, the whole 9 yards. That would purchase a trained drug and track detection dog, vehicle upfit, again, canine-related uniform and equipment. The proposed increase to FTI 22 contract services line would also help cover that cost for canine food and canine veterinarian wellness checks. When speaking with Sergeant Larimore, who's our current canine handler, our vet bill and food bill averages right around $700 a year. The Queen Anne's County Narcotics Task Force is typically very good to us. It's my intent to establish a better relationship with them so that we can make sure that this drug detection dog is available to them when they're working search warrants in different cases. And in turn, for our partnership with them, with our canines, I would ask that they maybe help us out with covering some of the costs as we progress into this new program.
Chief, we did have 2 canines previously until one of those officers left employment.
The dog that we have now, Canine Crush, you guys are familiar with him. Crush does an amazing job. Crush is getting up in age a little bit. I don't know what Sergeant Larimore's intent is, whether he wants to train and handle another dog. If he does, that's great, and I would certainly afford that to him because he deserves that. But we need a second dog on the streets here, and that dog needs to be a drug detection dog and a tracking dog. We get a kid that wanders off or a dementia patient that wanders off. We've got to have that resource available. And I like the idea of a drug detection and track dog only, because we can run them through schools to have kids pull on their ears. We can run them up to the 4th of July fireworks thing that we have and be social with the citizens in the community. So I would fully ask for the council's support for us to be able to proceed with this.
Crush doesn't like having his ears pulled by kids.
Crush is not,
You don't want to go near the dog.
not safe for work. Not safe. Crush is he's a machine.
Yeah.
He's got a purpose.
Your vehicle upgrade, I assume that'll be, those won't, will they replace, they won't replace spares, right? You'll get officers in those new units, right?
Correct. What are you talking about for the vehicle, the new vehicles
Yeah,
request I did?
yeah.
And you'll see my, and I'd be happy to talk about this. This is kind of my moment to shine. And I spent some time typing this up, but we currently have, and you'll see in your packets too, there's a spreadsheet here that talks a little bit about the condition of our current fleet. In fact, find my little sticky note here. I need a separate binder. Second. So we currently have 14 vehicles. 2 of those vehicles are currently used as spare cars. They're 2011 Crown Victorias. Every time we go out there to run one, and I have the guys go out there and start them up and run them around town routinely, we usually have to take a jump pack with us. In fact, Lieutenant Meal and I took it to lunch twice this week, and both times, once at Doc's and once at Mama Mia's, we were out in the parking lot jump starting it, which was quite entertaining. So those 2 spare cars, those 2 Crown Victorias, it's our intent to put them up on auction if we get approved to purchase 2 new vehicles. And those 2 new vehicles will actually go to our guys that are on patrol there. And that we would rotate the, if I could find my sticky note, I'd tell you, we would rotate some of the older cars that we have in the fleet to make them spares. And you can see our spare car number 1, which is on page 3 of what I gave you, spare car 1 and spare car 2. I just kind of quickly identified some of the issues. And again, it would be my intent to purchase and rotate out those high mileage cars. I would like to look into a hybrid type of police vehicle, which I think would be a lot more cost effective and it may be slightly more expensive than a traditional police vehicle, but I'm looking at over a course of several years, maybe cutting down and use the fuel efficiency side of things. So I'd like to look at a hybrid type of police vehicles. And I put together 2 quotes in there. One's for a Ford Explorer, one's for a Chevy Tahoe. It just kind of shows you apples to oranges, with a complete upfit on a Tahoe and then a complete upfit on an Explorer, what the price range is. And you can see they're relative within maybe a few $1,000s. And then, of course, Lieutenant Meal's car, he actually drives, this is our second in command and the most tenured police officer with the town of Centreville, and he actually drives a 2010 Crown Victoria with 118,000 miles on it. That car I would probably rotate as a spare vehicle, and hopefully, again, through an attrition plan, get rid of that one under the next budget.
Just for my edification, is the Tahoe used? It's 2019, or is it?
No, they would be new.
Okay.
We have purchased, I think, in the past, Steve, I think we've, over the last probably few years, purchased maybe 1 new, and the rest have been used. I think they've driven out to Kentucky and other states across the world to pick these cars up and drive them back.
3 used in the last, 2 fiscal years,
It's
3
kind
or
of a
4.
maddening process.
I don't
you gotta
know
be
that
like eBay and click on it and get it.
Yeah,
And
I'm
then you gotta,
going to be honest with you. I don't know that I've got that kind of time in my life to drive cross country to pick up a used car.
I don't know, I got time.
Get time, road trip.
You just put the lights on and you go.
So here's the,
Makes it a little easier.
going over and coming back. So 14 total cars. We've got one 2010, and you've got this in your packets, two 2011s, a 2013, a 2015, 4 from 2016, 2 from 17, 2 from 18, and 1 from 19. So we have one car from 2019 and 2 from 2018. One's 11 years old, 2 are 10 years old, one's 8 years old, one's 6 years old, and 4 of them are 5 years old. The rest are 4 years or newer.
And just for the rest of the new council members, we have a police car replacement policy, and we haven't been following it for the past several years because
what
the
is
council
that?
has been, what?
What is the policy?
It typically has been one new car a year, but we haven't done that because the council hasn't funded that stuff in many years.
Like I'm looking at them and some of them got 50,000 miles on them already, so.
Yeah.
What do you like to keep them to, about 100,000 or whatever?
Not even that. I mean, the thing with Centreville is, we don't have a lot of patrol miles, but we get a lot of hours on the engine. So the odometer readings aren't necessarily conducive of the wear and tear on these trucks because they're running. So
Exactly.
I would say well before 100,000 miles, we would need to flip these cars out. 2 would definitely be and I know, we've not been able to purchase vehicles in a bit. I can tell you if we don't stick to this policy that was written, I think, by the former chief, we're going to be in dire straits and we're going to end up with holes in our floors and guys pedaling around Centreville like Fred Flintstone. So I'd like to avoid that. Our police cars, our police fleet need to be standing tall driving through town. So I would appreciate the council's support on that.
All right, does anybody have any other questions about operating? Are we okay with
Capital.
general fund capital that's been presented to us? I think we pulled out the wharf part,
And we pulled out the parking study.
we pulled out the parking study. And the only reason I say that is because we're kind of running up on time here. And so what I would recommend is go back and redo the stuff we've talked about, add these things in, right, onto a line item for the general fund. Then next time we'll start out with the enterprise operating and capital. We'll go through the public utility tax, fiscal recovery act funds. And then one other thing I wanted to ask as well, because Steve, I think you have something about the allocation of costs. Maybe if you could run a general fund and enterprise fund based on like the new, like alternate numbers, 35%, right?
I mean, typically, with the staff, we did another evaluation of what we anticipate those 16 employees that are paid out of the general fund budget, but do a fair amount of work for the enterprise. And when I first came here, the rate was at 50%, went down to 40%. Then it sort of got into if you want to say budget adjustment, kept changing the percent based on that. But just our analysis of what we truly feel the split is on the amount of time they spend on water, wastewater is about 35%. So right now we're at 20, but again, 20 was set primarily to
balance.
make the enterprise budget work, in prior years. It used to, the rate should be higher, but I just wanted to at least share with you, we did another analysis with all the staff just to, see where they came out and averaged it came out at 35%.
So I would say do the new general fund and enterprise fund with all the new calculations based on 20% growth, 20% allocation, and then do the same thing with 35%, right? Just so that we can make a decision if we're going to leave it or if we're going to, if we're
And
going to
each
go with
5% of allocation is about 66,000 cost change. So if you went from 20 to 35, it would be about 180,000 off of the general fund to the enterprise.
Does anybody have anything else we want to talk about? We do have a public comment at the very end of this. Is there any public that wants to speak regarding the budget session? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We'll reconvene at 7. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to convene the town council meeting of April 1st, 2021. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance, and when we stand, if you would please stand up for a moment of silence for military and public safety personnel, past and present as well. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item is March 18th, 2021 meeting minutes. I was actually not at that meeting, so I'm going to defer to anybody else to make any changes.
I don't have any changes.
No changes.
I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes from March 18th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. Next, we've got March 25th, 2021. I actually have a couple of changes. Maybe there's a question on it. Under department budgets on the first page, second bullet, it was requested that Ms. Luffman remove the 75% difference between the FY 2020 and the FY 2021 public utility tax rate, $3.89. I just don't understand that. It seems a little clunky. Is that the difference? Is that right? Okay, all right, so I think that one's
$3.11 and $7.
correct. Okay, got it. Under the second page, American Rescue Plan Act, I would like to have a bullet put in there under Ms. McCluskey requested that $500,000 be included in the capital budget from this funding for a broadband pilot program with further discussion at subsequent budget meetings.
No, that's the big missing out. That was a major statement at the end of the,
Yeah. So I don't have any other changes, and if we would accept that, I'll accept the motion to approve as amended.
I'll move to adopt the minutes from March 25th, 2021.
second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Next, we've got Citizens Forum. Carolyn, if you would read the notice.
Welcome to this meeting of the Centreville Town Council. This is a public meeting and we welcome your participation. By attending, you acknowledge that this session is recorded and aired live on QAC TV 7. During the meeting, we ask that you turn your cell phones off and hold personal conversations outside the meeting room. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The Town Council respects and appreciates your desire and right to convey your message freely, and in keeping with the dignity of proceedings, we ask that all views be expressed in a respectful and civil manner. Comments longer than 3 minutes should be submitted in writing. If questions are a part of your comments, we will refer those to the appropriate individual. Thank you.
All right, if anybody wants to come up for Citizens Forum, please come forward, state your name, and you've got 3 minutes, and if there's questions that we can answer, we'll do our best.
Hi, good evening. I'm Adam Goodhart. Thanks for having me to speak. I live at 201 East Water Street, which is the corner of Banjo Lane and East Water. It's the big old white brick house across the street from the post office, and one of the oldest houses in Centreville, which actually is why I'm here. So this house, as some of you Centreville old timers may recall, 20 years ago was totally derelict, had been derelict for 20 years. I came in, fool that I am, but lover of history. I'm a professor of history at Washington College, and I've spent the last 17 years slowly restoring the house. A few weeks ago, I finally got around to putting in a new sewer line, which was something I knew I would have to do. The roots were growing in and choking it off. I spent a lot of money installing the new sewer line, only to have my plumbers from Major League Plumbing discover that my sewer line had never been hooked into the town sewer line that runs down Banjo Lane. And apparently everything that was flowing out of my house for the past God knows how many decades was not flowing into the town sewer, but flowing sort of into the ground. Kip, who's here, is very familiar with the situation, having kindly come out and taken a look at it. So apparently what happened was, when that sewer line was decades ago run down Banjo Lane, they never actually put a tap connecting, a lateral connecting to my house. There was a lateral that comes out of it, and we don't quite know where it goes. There's no good map, and there's no good account of why it wasn't connected, because the town records from that period burned up decades ago. So I'm respectfully asking that the town would install a tap and a lateral line, which is about 10 to 15 feet long, that connects that main sewer line into my property to allow me to flush the toilet and not have it go into Banjo Lane. So thanks very much for your consideration. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them, and I'm sure Kip can as well.
Okay. I do believe, Kip, that we have the ability to TV line that. Would you come up here and talk about that? That there might be a lateral actually coming out onto the property?
Yes, town staff spent some time there. We put camera in the line and checked the main. There's laterals. There's actually two of them going towards his side of the street. The thing is that the camera that we used, we don't have the ability to shoot the camera up into the lateral. I just found out this afternoon, I've got the name of a contractor that does have a camera that we can launch into the lateral and find out where that lateral actually goes to. At this point, I would suggest that be our next step. If I can get that contractor here in a timely manner to check it, we would certainly be able to give you a little more information than we have so far.
Great, that's good to know, Kip.
And like I say, it was just something that I found out this afternoon, the name of the contractor.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say let's try that solution first. Okay.
And if that's agreeable with you, it's,
That
okay.
is- Yep.
And thank you for taking care of that house. It's a great one, and man, it's a lot of work.
I love it, but I always say I hold the roof up with one hand and write checks with the other.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to participate in the Citizens Forum? Nick?
So, Nick Rowden, 332 Kidwell Avenue. This actually stems from a conversation that I had via email with you earlier, I guess last week, Tim. And I'm going to talk as quick as I can to get this out in 3 minutes. But in my time with CETA, a couple of things that we talked about that came up all the time. One of them was that the citizens of the town wanted more restaurants, more diversity in grocery stores, more shopping and things of that sort, things that you cannot have with the population base that we have. Growing our population base doesn't happen without tapping critical infrastructure that we are at the limit of right now, and we don't want to expand. The other thing came up is that there's nowhere for people to stay in this town. There's no hotels, things of that sort. And the reason that this came up happened to be because I was asking about, hey, if I wanted to turn my house into an Airbnb, what would happen to do that? As it turns out, the process to do that requires a zoning exception that is essentially the same zoning exception I would have to apply for if I wanted to turn my house into a gas station. It's extremely expensive. It's extremely time consuming. I'd have to hire an attorney. And it pretty much just takes that out of the ballgame. And so when we look at the impact difference between a bed and breakfast and those other things versus an Airbnb is typically used for the same thing a regular residence would be used for. We're not expanding on that. We're not adding capacity. We're not using that residence for something other than what we would normally use it for. And so I wanted to let you know I'm putting together a plan right now to come to you guys and say, hey, we need to change this. There needs to be a way for us to register Airbnbs. And what we really want out of that is a point of contact. I want to be able to tell the police department or the town who to call if there's a problem. But Airbnb and VRBO and those other places, they regulate it for you. So really all you need is that point of contact to say, here you go. If your neighborhood doesn't like it, put it in your HOA that you're not allowed to do those here, and then that's that. But the same problems that exist when you think about a commercial hotel or something like that, that's not what Airbnbs are. They're family oriented, they're people trying to get out of town, and if we want to grow that tourist base here, that is the first step in the door, is allowing those.
Okay.
In
Thanks.
2 weeks, I'll be back with a
All right.
presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else that wants to make a comment under Citizens Forum? We don't have any emails for Citizens Forum either. All right, moving on. Let's go to appearances. Queen Anne's County Legacy Foundation, Elaine. The floor is yours.
Actually, I want to pass. Do I need to put my mask on to pass something out?
I think you're fine.
Thank you very much.
You look safe. You look safe.
Thank you.
That's nothing but a snapshot of the front of our website. It just gives you a flavor of what we've done in the last year. I'm going to tell you a little bit of background about us. And then what I really wanted to get in front of you with was some of the ideas for the new year. Some of them are just in the formative stages. And so I wanted to get a chance to talk about them, kind of get the ideas out there and get the feedback on them. So my name is Elaine Studley. I am Executive Director of the Queen Anne's County Legacy Foundation. And actually our structure is going to change very shortly, and you'll hear about that. I am so sorry for doing this now during the middle of your budget season, but the reason I am is that we've just spent six weeks in strategic planning. And then March is also our grant filing season, so we spent a good part of March writing grants. And then the Midshore Community Foundation actually took us through guided strategic planning. We did it with 40 other organizations. Among them were the Chestertown Main Street Program, the Easton Main Street Program, their economic development group, and essentially we all shared and passed ideas, and so this is kind of a culmination of some of that. So I'll tell you a little bit about us. We were born out of CETA, and the real role is to be a support role to all of our nonprofits, including Main Street. We now talk about being a help to Main Street without being underfoot. So whenever Main Street needs volunteers, we provide them. When any of the historical groups need volunteers, we provide them. We are a foundation. I'll tell you a little bit about that. So we are a 3-year-old nonprofit foundation. We are a sub-fund of Midshore Community Foundation, which we absolutely love. They basically do our auditing for us and our accounting. We are 100% volunteer. We have no overhead. And we are dedicated to economic development and community building. We're a little different than CETA because we added the community building element, and it's actually a large part of what we do. Oh, and I'm really bad with these pointers. How about that? I just said all that. So this is the mission that came out of our strategic plans to build community, to attract cultural tourism and foster economic development in central Queen Anne's County by creating unique Eastern Shore experiences, events, microgrants for nonprofits, historic tours, and rural festivals. We are at least, a good part of what we do is supportive. And a foundation is a little bit different in that we do not have membership. We are entirely dedicated to gathering funds and finding places to put those funds. Over the 3 years that we have been here, we've earned about $38,000. About a third of that has gone into micro grants. We are itty bitty, so our micro grants typically are $1,000 to $4,000. We're hoping this year to apply them to a range of things that we didn't get to under COVID. For example, we'd like to work on the farmers market, that kind of stuff. We'd love to provide micro grants for people starting out in the farmers market, maybe get seed money to people who'd like to open a booth, that kind of thing. So this is the vision that came out of the recent strategic planning, to focus on community building in Centreville, and we'll show you later how we do that, to provide microgrants, as we said, and volunteers for Main Street and for the nonprofits without getting underfoot, to foster cultural tourism and a sense of place, and this is one of the concepts that came out of CETA. When I first joined CETA, I asked one of the major universities to give me data to better understand the community. And this is part of what came out of it. One of the things that did come out of it, it was Harvard, and they gave us basically a 10-year snapshot of the development of our community. They told me two things. One of them is that we had some demographic gaps. We had a gap. Our 18 to 35-year-olds basically leave town for amusement, entertainment, education, and opportunity, and then they return at 35 to raise their families. We also, so to foster cultural tourism in a sense of place for us means expanding it to younger people and attracting them. One of the big challenges of that was a related piece of data that came out of this. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I spent half of my career was in marketing research. I have an MBA in computing, so I'm actually a geek. You'll often hear geek references in what I do because that's just what I like. But half of it was in research and the other was in marketing services. So to foster cultural tourism and a sense of place, to inspire cooperation among our historic nonprofits. This is one of the things that I came out of CETA as big on my wish list. We have a half dozen historic organizations in Queen Anne's County. And cooperating together is one of the great challenges. They are together, they're quite a brain trust. And when they work together, the events are remarkable. They really are a talent group. To nurture a new generation of volunteers and to build a reputation for excellence, financial integrity, honesty, and trust. Okay, our target market. Now, we are a segment of economic development. We are not the entirety of economic development. Some of the data that came back from the university targeted the businesses that should be coming in here and that kind of thing. That is not what we do. We are working on cultural tourism, and this is a little bit about them. I'll explain cultural tourism. So cultural tourists prefer an authentic experience of history and the arts. Why are they suited to us? They are more respectful of the environment. They spend 60% more dollars when they visit. They are interested in history, arts, agriculture, and ecotourism. They are affluent. They are a growth market, and they are suited to historic towns. So we are very desirous of attracting them. The really cool graph there is just an indication that it's growing, and I'm not entirely sure. According to this graph, it says that this market is growing 9% compounded annually. I think that's highly improbable, but I hope you like my graph. Anyway, the cultural tourism market, I'll tell you a little bit about them. There we go. How to leverage a fragmented market. One of the characteristics of cultural tourism is that it's a very fragmented market. It's culinary experiences, it's food, it's wine, it's beer, it's history, it's science, it's agritourism and ecotourism. Actually, when Carol works on an event, she's doing this naturally. So when Carol says, I'm adding music to an event, I'm adding wine to an event, essentially you're marrying two of the characteristics of cultural tourism. And there's an exponential benefit every time you put two or more of those, every time you create a pairing in this form of tourism, you actually increase significantly the word that gets out about it. Okay. All right, so I don't believe in punishment and I don't believe in punitive pictures, but this is one of them. I am sorry about LA. LA always gets kicked. There are wonderful places in LA, but what it boils down to is historic beauty does not come back. When you've taken it away, if you've chosen not to focus on it, this is why strategic planning and economic development matters, because if you know who you are, you're going to know where you're going. For a nonprofit to work without strategic planning is like getting a car without a destination. Somebody said that. For me, it has meaning. I really feel it's absolutely critical, and it's one of the things that I had hoped CETA would progress to and then create goals to get to. The clarity in those goals matters. Okay, a little bit about us and what we've achieved in the last 3 years. We're best known for the historic tours that we've done, and each of those historic tours has actually outshined the neighboring towns' historic tours. We've had more visitors than both the Dickens Festival and the Easton Festivals as well. We beat them both. That wasn't the end game, but it was the joy. Part of the fun of that was we did gather from 6 states and 4 counties. So all 4 counties around us. And there are a lot of people who went to Chestertown the same day they went to ours, and that's one of the ways we got the feedback. But we did counts against that, and when we actually all got together, we did compare notes. We write microgrants, and those grants are tiny. You know, it's not huge. We usually give somewhere between $1,000 and $4,000. We worked on, for example, the historic lamps in Main Street. We contributed trees to Main Street. We worked on preservation of Tucker House and of Wright's Chance. We've contributed painting and new air systems to those, and we've also contributed labor. Benjamin Franklin is a rather odd event. One of our commissioners came up to me and said, "Who are you and what do you really do?" Benjamin Franklin was a strange event, and the minute he said that, the minute Commissioner Moran said that, we put strategic planning onto our plan, because if someone attends one of our events and they have no idea what we do, and we're about to ask them for grant money, it's time to do strategic planning. Benjamin Franklin was an opportunity to get together all of the historical groups and to reward them, get them to play together well so that they can begin to work on projects together, and you'll see that, it's just come out. We're going to be all working on a project together, and we're super proud of that. We will never do Benjamin Franklin again. It cost us $6,000. We did make the money back, but it also required a small army of people. It was fun, but it required a small army of people. We also did an historic fair at the county. We met 2,000 people at that fair. We taught the history of agriculture. We taught children how to make historic dolls and how to play historic games. We met most of the volunteers we have now. Because we do not have a membership, we put a shout out on Facebook every time we need to do something, and people volunteer for doing things. Now, here comes COVID, and there disappears the entire plans for the year. For COVID, we did a virtual holiday festival, and the virtual holiday festival was a whole variety of things. It was a big aha moment. We had more participation in the virtual holiday festival than we did in anything previous. We had over 50 families actually active in that. And it was a ball. It was actually a blast. We ended up having to buy more ice cream cones because kids came up with their own categories. We had a Grinch category, and so we had to give ice cream cones for the Grinch category. Little note about social media marketing. Social media marketing has now supplanted all other forms of marketing. Paper marketing has dropped down to number 6. It doesn't mean we don't use it. And I have a dream, okay? One of my dreams is that we do what Chestertown does. And that is when Chestertown does, for example, the Dickens Festival, they have an entire week. And I will make the argument for a festival. They use an entire centerfold spread in their papers to market it. Every time I look at that, I get really jealous. And then I decide I can't afford it, so I don't do it. But my hope for the coming year is that when we go to do our winter festival, if in fact we're completely out of COVID and we're off to doing a range of things, that we work together on that. When COVID first hit, we started a mask making program, and that we cannot take credit for that. The Queen Anne County Quilters called us and said we need seamstresses, and we put a shout out on Facebook. There were 25 of us. We were the least of the lot. The quilters were able to, each one of them was able to make 25 masks a day. I was able to do 12, and they gave me the goofy work and not the hard stuff. But I became Elaine, the Gorgon destroyer of machines. It was a fabulous experience, and one of the things we basically did, our job was providing masks to first responders and providing masks to essential personnel. We also had a campaign. This is more akin to what we're actually all about, and it was Masks Are All the Fashion campaign. If you dropped fabric on my porch, we made masks for your entire family and your kids. And we made monster masks, and we made ravens masks, and we made dinosaur masks. Again, we put out about 250 masks in a short period. When COVID was over, well, during COVID, we went through 6 weeks of strategic planning with 40 Eastern Shore nonprofits. What we've learned. What we've learned in 3 years, that festivals create more engagement than single one-off events. That's a basic principle of economic development. Community building is not necessarily expensive. We spent $900 on the entirety of what we did this winter. When we did Main Street, all of the greening of Main Street, that entire expense was $350. Because we had 9 volunteers cutting down everybody's trees. If your trees are looking a little thin, it's because our volunteers were cutting them down. We had a ball on that. We got an entire month of activity out of it. We spent $900. We had $800 donated back. We're not here looking for money, although we realize that you've gotten money in. We like you better now. But we are not here looking for money. We feel as a foundation, one of our jobs is to find our own and make our own and keep it. We would like to continue to replenish our own each year, keep it at the same level and build upon it. One of our goals is never to have to reduce our funds in any given year. We follow on the style of the Avalon Foundation and the way we do things. They did the same thing during COVID. They revamped to be the call center for Easton. They have also acted as an advisor to us. What we learned is that nonprofits working together has an exponential benefit. There were times when our historical groups did not get together, and when they do get together, they're remarkable. Their sharing is incredible. We also learned that Centrevillians love competing, volunteering, and giving. During the mask making, we ran out of everything. We ran out of elastic, we ran out of the liners, we ran out of just about everything, and elastic at that time became $200 a roll on the internet. So we put a shout out, and my front porch turned into a junkyard overnight. People were dumping everything on my porch, so we were able to keep going. Finally, the strategic planning is indispensable to a success. Always know where you're going. Okay, back to the awful punitive picture. I really don't believe in this. I didn't believe it in my home, and it's why my home is almost always Bedlam. Okay. If you don't know where you're going, you're almost certainly to take the wrong route. Strategic planning really matters. So 2021, 22, and this is what really matters. These are very simple plans. They start out with an understanding that COVID is going to continue to impact us for another 6 months, but then they sort of grow out of COVID. First one, a spring festival. We would like to have a spring festival. It's going to happen really quickly because of all that's happened. You'll see this appear just about tomorrow. And that is, we're going to mimic something like what we did at Christmas, and we're going to prompt people to do a door and porch decorating. And that's pretty much all it's going to be. We'll try and get the money together for prizes, but it's going to be pretty simple just based on time. This is a super old-fashioned idea, and we don't plan to do the Annapolis bag. Annapolis does the Annapolis bag. We're not even going to go there. But a Centreville welcome wagon is very much in keeping with community building, and we're excited about it. We've been talking about this for 3 years. Gift certificates, cards, church and club information, volunteer groups, local history, town merchant apps, local parks and recreation, emergency numbers, coffee table, and a coffee table book about the county seat. That's a dream of mine, of the groups. We would love to have a book. We would love to write a book about the town and the county, and then actually have it as a gift for a newcomer. Okay, Streetscape and Foot Traffic Initiative. This is very much in, here's where we give a shout out to Shelby. Thank you for your help at Christmas time, for their support. Also to Mike Whitehill, who has been an amazing advisor on this kind of stuff. We always go to him with an idea, and Mike says, no, that's crazy, and this is why, but he always makes sense. So we come back with another idea, and then he comes up with suggestions. We would like to continue to contribute to the streetscape, and we don't know precisely what that looks like. We have a complicated streetscape. All we know is that we'd like to increase foot traffic. So the 2021 partnership is with Parks and Planning, Main Street, Queen Anne's County Garden Club, Queen Anne's County Historical Society, and the business community. What you're looking at in that picture is actually a self-watering urn. One of the charges for us is never to put a burden on our current workers. The reality is we're short on workers to begin with, so that holds 50 gallons of water. If we decided to do urns of that type, they would be self-watering for 6 weeks at a time, and we would be responsible for the rest. We have no idea what they should look like, and we have no idea what they should be. That's why we're going to beg for more help. Okay, we're going to be working on the Smithsonian Votes and Voters exhibition. This is where partnership comes in. Actually, all of the organizations, including Main Street, is going to be working on this. Our job will be providing docents for it. This is a 6-week program that'll come on the tail of the program that we're doing downtown, and the goal is to have something almost rolling constantly. So just as we're finishing our spring activity, this starts up in mid-June. What you're looking at there is actually the stamp that would have been on money in 1776. The exhibit is beautiful, and it's quite remarkable, and it's very, very timely. We're looking for docents, Mr. Hardy, just in case. But this is something that all of the groups are working together. So we feel like we've made progress. A Small Bites Festival in the fall, this is definitely up for grabs. For starts, we have no idea whether COVID is really going to free up at that point. This could, too, be a virtual festival if it has to be, or if we have a second wave. Small Bites Festival is just one of the things that got bandied around during strategic planning. Here's part of that market segmentation. If you focus on one thing and add another, the more components of that segmented market you bring together, the more likelihood you're going to get the kind of tourist you want. The tourist that we want is the same tourist who will actually move in here. And I would argue that someone who comes for a Small Bites Festival or somebody who comes for a wine festival is going to be also interested in ecotourism and agritourism. This is all, so the culture, key to cultural tourism. So the Centreville Farmers Market is our love. We did bail on, we did bail on it this year because we have so many senior citizens. We chose not to take an active role. We took a very conservative position, and I'll add to that at the end of this as to why we did that. Micro grants potentially for craftsmen and producers. One of the reasons to do this is 1 in 10 of folks who participate in farmers markets eventually go on to have a store. And one of the things that came out of the university data that was given to me is that we actually have a contraction in stores going on. Now, that may have changed. The time I got the data, when I got that data, it was 2017, and we were in about a 4.8% contraction in this community in terms of retail presence. So we would hope, if we are very supportive of people going into this, that we will eyeball and see people who may belong in stores. It's one of many possibilities. We would like to do our Candlelight Tour again. We really feel that that highlights the best of our community. One of our councilmen has volunteered to be on that tour, right?
I've done it in the past, yep.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
So we're hoping for the Osmond House this time. This is a bit of a plug to get the Osmond House. Anyway, we have learned an immense amount from that tour. Wharf history, I've become passionate about wharf history. I had to study wharf history when I wrote the book this year for the last tour, and so we'd like to continue working on that. And finally, team effort for nonprofits. We would like to go on to provide supportive activities for our nonprofits, collaborative events where the nonprofits would get together. Ben Franklin was great. It was so much fun to see the Kent Island Heritage Society partying with the local historical society. It really was a great thing. And when you throw in someone who's being Ben Franklin, that's like crack for an historian. Micro grant support, we'd like to continue, actually teach that and continue with it. We'd like collaborative marketing and advertising, strategic planning guidance. It's possible if they could come to us if they needed help with a strategic plan they were working on, we'd be glad to help. Nonprofit liability and ethics, that is one of the things that we worry about and we're concerned about. We buy blanket liability for the year. We also buy liability for every event. And we'd like to see all of the nonprofits more active and doing that. And then website and social media. Some of the groups have very active website and social media activity, and others are sort of just getting into it. We'd be glad to provide that support. Anyway, that's who we are, and that's what we've been working on. We're not actually here to ask for money. We're hoping to get enough grants this year to do everything we've asked for. Right? Thank you.
Get some great ideas. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. A lot to look forward to.
Thanks for everything you do for
I'll see
the
you at
town.
the next meeting.
Yes, I look forward to it.
All right, we don't have any other appearances. We're going to move into old business, tax differential / tax set-off discussion. This is coming from our budget session that happened previously. Is there a motion on that?
Sure, I'll make a motion to retain for the town the 2022 tax differential.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any further discussion? So this would essentially be writing a letter to the county commissioners, letting them know that the tax differential that they'd be putting through would come back to the town. Yep. All right. We'll take a vote on that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstain?
Abstain.
All right, the ayes have it. Thank you. Moving next, we've got ordinance 04-2021, remove size of trash cans, second reading. I will read the top of that. Ordinance number 04-2021, an ordinance of the Town Council of Centreville to amend section 129-32, preparation and placement of category 1 waste of the town code for the size required per container and all matters related generally thereto. Now, I was not here when this was initially introduced, but basically it's just kind of cleaning up, if you will, the code. Is this available to be considered at this point, or we want to wait until next meeting?
You can consider it, yeah. It doesn't require a public hearing, and we've had a first reading.
All right. Do we
Make a
want to
motion
consider
that
this?
we adopt ordinance 4-2021 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor of approving ordinance 04-2021 as presented, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, guys have it. Centreville Wharf Transient Dock. Carolyn, do you want to take this?
Yes, I just put it in the wrong one. So, the town, back in, and I actually have the wrong date on here, back in 2011, 2012, the council passed a resolution to establish fees for our transient docking at the wharf. So those are, there's cleats that are at the wharf right now where someone who just wants to come in overnight, they could stay for a couple days, could tie up to the cleats. These are not for the slips. We originally used a meter company that I'm not sure if we realized when we signed up with them that they actually were out of the country. And our overnight fee is only $10. So when we signed up with them, people would pay the fee. It was all done through an app. The exchange rates, we hardly got any money by the time it got back to us. So, and there were issues with it working and all that. In the previous few years, when people call about the transient docks, we just ask them to call town hall. People do call town hall, they'll go ahead and pay their $10, or they come in and pay $10 to use it overnight. And again, it's only from 9 at night till 7 a.m. in the morning. During the day, you can tie up all day with no fee. So this request is to sign a listing agreement, is what they call it with, it's called Snag a Slip. So it's basically another cloud-based company that someone would go on, use the app to pay for the $10 overnight. We would have signs up just like we did before down there saying this is how you go on to pay. And their fees are very minimum, 10%. Well, it's very minimum because our fee is very minimum, but 10% and that's if they use through their website, Snag a Slip, it's a 10% fee, so 10% of $10 is $1 that we would be charged. And then if it's through our website, it's only basically 50 cents. So, and we can put a widget on our website and people can use that, so.
So part of this discussion has come up because over the past several years, we haven't really had a very good enforcement mechanism, and there's been abuse, right? People staying down there, transient docking for months at a time, and it was difficult to enforce it, and it's not fair for the people who are paying $750 a year to reserve their slip. Right. These guys run the slip over in Annapolis as well, and one of the good things is that we've just gotten dredging down there, so we've got a little bit of a deeper river. They will actually put a description on their website, and we can provide all the photos and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll also have the ability to put a widget or whatever it is on our website. We could put a sign on down there that says that, and when you sign up for it, you actually have to put your numbers and your boat numbers in, and so the police will then have the ability to say, have these people paid or not, right? So I think it'd be good to try it as a trial and see what happens. I mean, we only pay them if someone pays us.
Right.
So
right.
I'm in favor of this.
I'm in favor of it as well, and I'm in favor of considering increasing our transient fees. $10 seems too reasonable. Are we providing shore power? Are we providing power down there?
Not for the transient, for the boat slips we are, but yeah.
I'm supportive of the memorandum in front
All
of
right,
us.
so why don't we do it as it is this year, see how it goes. We'll see if we can get some enforcement down there as well. And if, after the season goes by, we find out that enforcement really cost us a lot of man hours, maybe we will reconsider and raise the fees up. I'll actually make a motion to approve signing a marina listing agreement with Snag a Slip to provide a way for transient boaters to pay for overnight docking at the town's waterfront transient tie-ups.
I'll second.
All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. I would just ask Steve on this agreement, they got to change, my name shouldn't be on that, it should be town manager. Next item of old business is 2021 fireworks. Any updates on that?
Where's Chelsea? I'll give that, I won't make Chelsea come up. So we've held another committee meeting, and I will have to say I'm giving shout out to Chelsea Townsend, our new administrative assistant for the police department. She's been a huge help and great ideas.
Has she found a Ferris wheel?
No, Shelby's going to talk about that
Oh,
in a
nice.
minute. So we are, and Tim missed it at the last meeting that we gave an update. The committee has decided to not do rides this year.
Okay.
Just because of the cleaning in between, and we have a problem sometimes finding some volunteers to help at the event. So we're going to forego the rides, but we are coming up with some other ideas, such as, do you want to talk about it?
Go.
Okay. Such as possibly a little petting zoo, possibly and now I'm trying to remember, magic show.
Nice.
So we're trying to gear it more towards the kids, where it's not so much, physical as the rides would be getting on and off. We are still doing the food vendors, obviously the fireworks, and am I missing something?
DJ?
DJ, yes. And actually, we are going to talk to the DJ about doing, maybe every hour, do a different, like maybe a line dance, or, just try and get people up and, another activity.
And we've confirmed with QAC, Board of Ed, that we can use their property?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, I haven't talked to Jeff about that yet. One thing that came up was the possibility of maybe fire truck rides.
Reaching out to you about that.
Yeah, I hadn't brought that up yet, but
Bungee jumps off of the top of the ladder.
You're first.
yeah, I have submitted it. I haven't heard back yet from them, so. And I'm going to
Yeah, I'll
hand it
say,
over to Shelby on
I have been diligently looking for a Ferris wheel. And my first quote came in at $54,000
Just for the weekend? Just for the
for
day?
the day.
Oh, my goodness.
50.
So, we obviously cannot afford that, but I'm.
Do we get to keep the Ferris wheel?
Yeah, really. Yeah, really. Even the kid.
The kid size one was only 24.
Yeah, 24,000 for the kid size.
Yeah. And that's like the only Maryland-based Ferris wheel company I've been able to find. But
Petting Zoo, I think Petting Zoo is a little more our style.
Yeah, it's a little more on our.
And if you guys have ideas of,
Yeah, we've been trying to come up.
like events that we could do for the kids that aren't so interactive,
Yeah,
let us know.
okay.
The event will still be from
6 to 9.
6 to 9, 6 to 9, but the activities like the magic show or the petting zoo are going to be from 6 to 8.
Okay.
Is that what we said? Right,
Yes.
yeah, 6 to 8.
But
So we're
food will
kind
last the whole time.
yeah. But the food and all that and the DJ will be the whole time.
Well, thank you all and your volunteers and for doing this. It's one of my favorite events all year, and it was tough to have to cancel it this last year.
It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
We'll still make it a good time.
Yes.
All right, anything else on that? Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to new business, waive outdoor dining fee consideration. Carol?
Good evening. How's everyone?
Great, thank you.
Hello.
Well, you wouldn't know it, but we're in spring. And with that, I anticipate that our restaurants are going to want to gain as much new business as they can, perhaps with doing some more outdoor dining. And I know you have the memo in your packet, but a couple years ago, we embarked on outdoor dining, permitting, and fees. It came out of the widened sidewalk, and then we talked more about it in our business district. But I wanted to come and talk to you about temporarily waiving the process and the permitting for now. I'm a big rule follower, and Carolyn will attest to that. But in this circumstance, I feel there's an opportunity for our business to gain a little bit more traction. I was thrilled. It looked like St. Patty's Day really was a nice bump for our restaurants. I called around, and they were all doing fairly well. And the outdoor dining segment could be another way for us to support them in a small way. I mean, it's is going to make or break them? No, but not having a permitting process and a fee attached, I think it's a nice way for us to say, yeah, we know that you're still hurting. So for now, we're going to put this on the back burner.
Do you have a recommendation as to how long or how it should be worded, or is it just indefinitely or until we impose it back again?
I would say let's just, for the warmer weather, so maybe till the end of September.
We do it for the end of this year?
Yeah.
That would be
The
awesome.
year?
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would take into the account the holiday season
Yes.
and hot cocoa and all that good stuff.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to approve it through December 31st?
Sure, I'm highly supportive of this, so I'll make the motion to approve a temporary waiver of section 170-22C2K1. Requires an outdoor dining permit and waive the outdoor dining fee of $25 through the end of calendar year 2021.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. I'm not going to repeat exactly what Council Vice President said, but I think everybody knows it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Anything
Thank
else
you.
you wanted to talk about? Or we're
Yeah,
good?
I'll do the speed reporting. Okay, so there's a few irons in the fire in Main Street. So one of them is the farmer's market. We received a $5,000 micro grant. It's the Upper Shore micro grant. The town will get the money on behalf of the farmer's market. That will allow us to have money towards the hiring of a stipend for a farmer's market manager. And yesterday, during the Friends meeting, they did agree to bring someone on board as the market manager. The ag grant will also pay for a farmer's market intern and some publicity, so a little bit of advertising money in there, and also looking at leveraging the online market from last year and having maybe a couple additional satellite drop-off locations where either we have food deserts where people aren't really have access to fresh, or maybe a location where we know we have a lot of shoppers. Yesterday's conversation was also about how do we best serve the appetite for a live market and also leverage what we did last year. So currently, and we're going to have a meeting of the minds with prospective farmers and producers next week. The market manager is going to get introduced and talk about possibly doing 4 to 5 more event-like farmers markets on a day where we're not competing with our bigger markets. So it'll be like a mini event within the context of the farmers market. And then also on our drop-off day, where folks are picking up the online stuff, if there's farmers and producers who want to set up, then they would have that capability too. So we're trying to blend it so it's the best of both worlds. So we'll let you know how that happens. But it's good stuff. Our wayfinding grant project, just this past Wednesday, Mead and Hunt came into town. They started inventorying all the signs throughout town. That's the very first step. And we talked about some of our priorities: parking signs, clear parking signs being tops there, and places that we want people to go to, like the wharf. We need to get those properly signed. So that was the first step. And follow-up steps will be to have a stakeholder meetings and talk about these priorities. Once they have that all mapped out, then we'll talk about, well, maybe we need a little bit more gateway signing here or so forth. And then the second and last stakeholder meeting will be about design. So once they're through, we'll have a prioritized map of signage, and also a design so that we can take some money out of my budget and maybe budget for latter years and picking off these signs one by one according to our priorities. So, yeah, it's good stuff. It's coming together well. Our Main Street microgrant program, so still patiently, not really, waiting for the money from the state. They tell me it's coming at the end of next week. We're going through the 35 applications that we've received so far and looking through them, starting to assess who needs more money, where are the sweet spots for each of our businesses and or nonprofits, so that while I'm waiting for the money, we could be planning out who's getting what, and that way we can just get that list over to finance as soon as we get that money. So the object is to get it out as quickly as possible for our businesses, and we'll most likely have enough money to do a second round. That second round will be open to all our businesses within the town limits, so that'll be a nice perk there too. And I did speak to our Maryland Makers Drink Maryland event co-partner again 2 weeks ago. We are going to give the college try as far as can we execute this event this year, knowing that we need to decentralize so we can't have clusters of people doing tasting passes. We're definitely going to need to ticket everyone. So typically someone can come in for free if they're not interested in the alcohol. But what we know we need to do is to be able to quantify how many people are on the footprint. So we foresee doing kind of a general admission, maybe a $5 ticket, just so that we know how many tickets that we sold and we can be responsible about this. Next week I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to Dr. C. No one wants to give what's the outdoor capacity limit for an event. So I just need to speak to him about what the comfort level is. What's really great about the event co-partner is this would be their very first event. They did no events last year, and they're very committed to masks on. We're going to need to, if we're going to need to do this, we're going to do it buttoned up and safe. So I'm confident that if we can't come to agreement with that, we'll both be fine with not having it again this year. So, but other than that, I've been, cleaning my office, stuff like that.
Great work. Is there any sense of the Centreville Artisans Festival?
I haven't heard anything. Paige, have you heard?
Yes, that's
Paige,
a
you have to come up.
The Artisans Festival is a Centreville Rotary event, and we're trying very hard, just like the Maryland Makers Fest, to find a venue. We're very interested in doing it again. We've got crafters who are very excited about it. The college would be perfect, also the 4-H park. So Centreville Rotary is trying to work through that, and we'll get back to you as soon as we hear.
Not to interrupt. Back in the early year 2000s, Chestertown had their Wildlife Art Festival, which we really like to attend, as me and my family, where the wildlife art was in the bank and in the theater and it just seems to me, count me for having the Centreville Artisans Fair in Centreville.
Okay.
And I think, you imagine the Lawyers Row businesses opening up their doors, the courthouse, for heaven's sakes, opening up its doors and saying, if you want to have a couple of vendors in each building, I don't know, to me, I'd be happy to help with that. Anybody else happy to help? I feel like the Centreville Artisans Festival, this is the venue for it.
Well, that's really exciting. I spent a lot of time in Talbot County and, of course, watched the Waterfowl Festival grow from the early 1980s to what it is today. And all it takes is someone with a little imagination to try and put it together. So I'll carry that idea back to Rotary and let you know.
I'm happy to help, too. I'm not just the idea guy.
Wonderful. You're in charge.
Thank you. Paige, isn't it going to be the 50th year?
Last year was the 50th. They got wiped out with COVID.
Okay. I kind of know that. I ran it for a couple of years, so I was disappointed. That was, whatever. Your survey, Carol, I didn't hear if you used, have you used the data from your survey on the farmer's market?
The farmer's market, so we have a couple surveys out currently. One is the previous shoppers from last year.
Right.
And we got, I think there were 77 that came back. There's a very large appetite for a live market. So we want to try to do what we can, but we also know we have not found that combination of things that will keep the market consistent throughout the year. That's always been our problem. We just have never had enough of that shopper segment. So what we're going to try to do in the planning is kind of marry the two. You know, let's provide something strong that's not necessarily available in other places.
Last year I ran into the Chestertown Farmers Market. They moved from the square to the street, and it was fantastic. I mean, having it in the street allowed them to have the spacing, kind of like at the end of last year.
Right.
Where people were able to roam. That was fantastic.
Well, the live market this year would be on a closed street. And previously into the planning that we started last year before COVID, Todd Munn did give me permission to use the courthouse square front and back.
Did he?
Yes, he did.
Hey, that was my next question.
I ask. So I will be back on his doorstep once we know what the market wants to commit to. So we're there. Thank you very much on behalf
Thanks
of
so
our
much.
businesses.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is generator memo. Kip, is this you?
Okay, in the 2021 mid-year capital budget review, a couple items that were there that the council approved were for the purchase and installation of 2 generators, one at the DPW shop and the other one at the Northbrook Water Treatment Plant. Coming before you tonight with a proposal to purchase the 2 generators, the one for, and this is just the purchase of the generator itself. From this point, we get the submittal package and we go out with an invitation to bid to qualified electricians to do the connections and everything once we have the generator on site and set. The generator for the Public Works building, the purchase and installation was approved for $35,000. The purchase and installation of the generator for the Northbrook treatment plant was $89,000. You'll find in your packet the quotes from Fidelity Power Systems for 40 kW generator and the automatic transfer switch for the DPW yard for $27,293, an 83 kW generator and automatic transfer switch for the water plant at $34,228. Fidelity's Power Systems is we used them when we purchased the generator for the police station. They are part of a company called Sourcewell, which is a national joint purchase alliance company who tracks previously bid items and allows piggybacking on those contracts to purchase at that price. So Fidelity is approved and has previous contracts. We're asking for purchase under those previous contracts for this equipment.
So the only question I have is that we approved this for the FY21 budget, but you're asking for us to encumber it into the FY22 budget?
Correct. I'm asking to encumber it. The reason is due to COVID and all the snowball effects of it, if we order that generator Monday, it's gonna take 20 weeks to get those 2 generators. So with that being said, that's gonna put us outside of the FY '21 budget season, and we'll be into '22. So I'm asking for those funds for both those generators.
Got it.
To be encumbered in the 2022 budget.
So in last year's budget process, you assumed the Northbrook Water Treatment Facility generator would be $89,000?
Correct. And when we sized it, I sized it a little larger than we needed. When I went to the company to get this all straight and get the quote from them through the through Sourcewell, they did their assessment of it, which is what we do all the time, and they said we didn't need a generator that big. We had originally proposed a 155 kW generator, and they came back and says, no, that's too large. You don't need anything that big. The 83 kW will take care of everything in that water plant easily.
You're confident in that?
Yes. If the generator manufacturer and sales Fidelity Power Systems did their evaluation and said so, we're banking on that because they have to make it right if it's not.
Do we have to encumber exactly what we had in last year's budget? Because it looks like we are spending way less than we budgeted, so.
But the installation's not included though.
Is the other part.
Yeah, this is just for
What the bids will be from the electricians.
Okay.
Right. And
The cost for the materials for the pad and everything else.
so this is just for the purchase of the generators and the automatic transfer switches.
Yep.
May not spend the total amount that was encumbered, but we need to make sure we have enough.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a 40 kW Kohler generator package for the Department of Public Works Streets building at a cost of $27,293, and an 83 kW Kohler generator package for the Northbrook Water Treatment Facility at a cost of $34,228, and to approve the encumbrance of $35,000 and $89,000 for the purchase and installation of both emergency generators to the fiscal year 2022 capital budget.
There a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. I'm not going to have to read it all over again, but is there
Hey,
any?
Tim, can you repeat that? So
Actually, I could repeat it, but I'm not going to, so there. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you
There
very
you
much.
go. Yep. Ordinance 05-2021. I'm going to read the top of this one here. Ordinance 05-20-21, or 2021. An ordinance of the Town Council of Centreville to amend the town zoning ordinance, codified as Chapter 170 of the Town Code, to create setback and buffer yard requirements between new uses and existing single-family detached residences in the R1 and R2 zoning district, and for any non-residential use in the R3 zoning district. So this is the first reading. This basically has come out of the text amendment that was being asked for the museums. That text amendment had some specific language regarding buffer yards, and then it was felt that it was kind of unfair that they were being singled out against other institutional uses. So I think what the council and the planning commission recommended was we come up with the buffer yard requirements for all non-single family residential uses, and then we can use that and then consider the museum one as well. So this will go to the planning commission at their next meeting, Carolyn, right? Their April, whatever the third Wednesday is. And then we'll have it come back and we'll do a public hearing. Does anybody have any comments or anything you want to add at this point?
No.
Okay. I have a little concern about the size of the setbacks, but that's something that the planning commission can kind of look at. All right, moving on to correspondence. I don't have any correspondence. Report of boards and commissions, Centreville Park Advisory Board.
Nothing to report at this time. We have a meeting this coming Tuesday.
Perfect. Queen Anne's County Council of Governments.
Nothing. We have a meeting coming up on the 14th.
All right. Maryland Municipal League.
We received from Maryland Municipal League guidance on the American Rescue Plan Act. Guidance and information based on their analysis of that act. In there was a report by Brookings Institute, and there was information from Senator Cardin. I will stay in contact with them to make sure we are aware of the details of that act so we can plan for next year.
Great. So the question that I have is that MML is doing a virtual flag ceremony this year, and each town is allowed to put a 5 to 10 second video together. I was reading some of the guidance today about what they want. They were like, shout out to your town, show your, and then I saw it said 5 to 10 seconds. You can't do any of that stuff in 5 to 10 seconds. So my recommendation would be, you hold the flag. Let's do it down at the wharf. The county, I know the IT department used to have a drone, so if we could do a close-up of you with the flag at the wharf, and then we have the drone go straight up and kind of see what the environs are, that would be a good 5 second.
We got it.
You got it. All right, it's got to begin by the 15th, so let's coordinate, figure out how we can all do it. But it's looking beautiful down there now, so.
Oh, yeah. Carolyn?
Are we good with figuring that out?
I got it.
Okay. All right, Centreville Planning Commission, we have a Planning Commission work session next week to go over the comp plan, and then the regular meeting is coming up on the third Wednesday. Report of the department heads, town manager.
Yeah, went with the council members to take a tour, take a look at some of the capital projects that we have upcoming, and also work together with department heads and preparing for the budget work sessions, and still continue working with different development projects that are coming before the planning commission and reviewing those.
All right, thank you. Chief of Police.
Just a couple of reminders for our citizens that we're still seeing some fraud, internet, telephone types of crimes. I just want to remind everybody not to provide any type of personal information over the telephone or internet. Specifically, we've seen a little bit of an uptick, not only in Queen Anne's County and Centreville, but across the state in false or fictitious unemployment types of scams, where scammers using someone else's social security number to make an unemployment claim. So we have some resources available at the police department. If someone is a victim of that type of crime, we'll be happy to help them out with it. Also want to remind our citizens, our residents, to continue to secure valuables. Don't leave any valuables in their cars. Last week we actually had a stolen vehicle on March 28th. That vehicle thankfully was recovered in less than 24 hours thanks to a very observant Queen Anne's County Sheriff's deputy. 3 juveniles were taken into custody. And since that time, thefts from vehicles have actually seemed to stop. Just a quick update on LEOPS. Yesterday, I emailed the state with an inquiry on where we were kind of with the LEOPS actuary study. The salaries and current contributions from our police officers into the state system was sent off. They are currently being evaluated to be sent to the administration. If those numbers are found to be accurate with what's in their system, they're going to send that data over to the actuary next week for preparation of the actuary report. So we are making some progress there. The gal that I've been working with is actually on vacation for a week, so I've been pestering her, I guess, number 2 person, but I have stressed that there is some urgency here, and I expect to have something back soon.
With telephone scams, scammers trying to represent Amazon have been very prevalent this last couple of weeks. And I don't know how they get information that maybe you bought something from Amazon and all of a sudden they want you to confirm or something. And
so we have a cell phone at the police department that we use for business. When we're out of the office, someone comes up, they can call a cell phone, or our on-duty patrol officer has that. We actually received a call from Amazon yesterday Lieutenant Meal had a great conversation with them. We got right into the point where they wanted us to provide them with our username and password and bank account number before he identified himself as a police officer. And then he could hear all the call center noise in the background, and they, for some reason, hung up on him. So it was a little disappointing that we didn't get any further than that. But yeah, anybody could be a victim of these types of crimes. It's just vitally important not to give anybody personal information, especially bank account information, credit card information, or social security numbers over the telephone. And if you suspect that it's a scam, it probably is, and contact the police department. We'll be happy to help you out.
Thanks, Chief.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director of Public Works? You're good. Town Clerk?
I'm good.
Second Citizens Forum, is there anybody that wants to come up and spend their 3 minutes? All right, moving on, we're going to go to Council Roundtable. Shelby Anania?
I just want to thank Kip for your tour this week and Steve, and then also thank the Chief, Chelsea, and Carolyn for a very productive fireworks meeting.
Great, thank you. Jeff Keel?
Same thing. I want to thank him for the tour. You learn a lot when you go on the tours. And also I had a citizen contact me about some sidewalks. So I called Steve about it, and he gave me the right answer, and they're going to be emailing him. They're supposed to be emailing him about it. So
Great, all right, thank you. Bob Hardy?
I've gotten a plethora of information from MML on dog parks throughout the state of Maryland, the municipalities and towns. I've gotten stuff from our Parks Advisory Chair, Mike Whitehill, and I will be, if I wasn't diving into the budget, I would have sent a note to him for us to meet, to go over past experience, because I believe this was looked at in 2016.
Great.
And so I hope that will be achieved. The dog owners, every time I mention it, yeah, really? So there's a certain excitement if we can pull it off.
Great, all right. Steve Klein?
Yeah, real briefly, I'll say thanks to Kip and Steve for the tour, and also say for, on the sake of the town employees, it was conveyed to me that because of the wet years that we've had, 4 or 5 in a row now, and the wastewater treatment plant, and the pond we have out at the farm, and the question of discharge to the Corsica River, that some of our employees sweat this stuff at night. And it keeps them up, this notion of potentially having to discharge to the creek and trying to make the sewer system work in a way that makes sense and follows the law and the rules. And I just want to say thank you to Kip and the Public Works team for the fact that I think there's probably not a lot of appreciation for the fact of how much stress is involved with making these systems work. And certainly part of my vote tonight on the differential is so we can stop that from happening. And the only other thing I'll mention is we've got a couple new folks in the Heights, and I've gone around and knocked on their door and said, we have lawn waste pickup, because it was pretty clear they didn't know that. So I wonder if in lieu of me knocking on their door, we might have some kind of system we can have for new folks. I saw the idea for a welcome kit to Centreville. I'm all for that, but tucking in there somewhere, we should have here's a trash day, here's what, here's.
So when we get new people who come, if they're renters, we don't, but when someone buys a house in Centreville, when we receive their deed, we send a welcome packet to them.
Perfect.
And in that welcome packet is a keeping up appearances, we call it, and it does talk about yard waste in there. They may not, from that pamphlet, because it is more generic, say specifically, this is the date we start, this is the date we stop. But if you ever talk to anyone who is new, encourage them to sign up for our email blast, because our email blasts do send that information out.
Sure, thank you.
Then there's the Town of Centreville Bulletin. Is that different than an email blast?
The what?
The Town of Centreville Bulletin? That comes
Oh, the
out.
Centreville Circular. Yeah, Carol does that.
No, you send out the bulletin that comes out on email.
That's the email blast, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I call it the bulletin.
That's okay.
Trash. Any progress on the next contract? I forgot to ask that.
It's just out to bid. The bid's due April 9th.
Friday.
All right, so I just had a couple of things. You know, we talk a lot about volunteers that work, that have been here for the town. We've got a lot of employees that have spent a lot of time here in the town, and I just wanted to read a couple of things here. The town of Centreville lost a couple of icons last week. I know it's going to be in the paper and it's been on Facebook, but Doris Payne was born in 1930. She was born, what I was told, on Pioneer Point Farm. She spent her life in Centreville, working for the town and volunteering in the community. She was initially employed by the town at the electric plant for over 10 years, and then in 1972, she went to town hall as deputy town clerk, 2 years later becoming town clerk. In 1983, became the town finance officer, and she was named as the 1989-1990 Roland B. Schweitzer Municipal Employee of the Year by the Maryland Municipal League. Now, that is an award that's given out by the entire MML, all of the towns and cities, and she won it that year. You know, there's a lot of scrapbooks that are in town hall. Miss Doris had set aside. She compiled news clippings, you know, all the goings on. So she was an icon. The other person that we lost last week was Liz Draper Bryce. She was born in 1937 in Y Mills. She graduated from Centreville High School, class of 1955, and she was the president of her class. She ran, as everybody knows, Draper Brothers Liquor Store for a long time, and she spent her entire life as a volunteer. In most volunteer roles, she also served as chair. She was a member of the Queen Anne's County Board of Education, member of the Centreville Young Women's Club, member of the Board of Directors for Queenstown Bank. She was a trustee at Chesapeake College from 1992 to 2004. She was chair in 1998 and 1999. She was a member of the local chapter of the American Heart Association, a member of the Town of Centreville's Planning Commission for decades, and chair for most of that time. She was a member of Queen Anne's County Character Counts, Queen Anne's County Chamber of Commerce, and she received their Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018. So I just wanted to mention that, and if there's nothing else, I'll accept the motion to close.
So moved. Motion adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good meeting.